Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen. Muhammadu Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Tasliman kathiran kathira. Fama ba'du. Jazakallahu khairan. Thank you very much for that introduction, for inviting me here and for coming to this session. I hope this will be of benefit to you and I hope that you will enjoy it. This is the cover of my book. I know there are several people here who I know who have read the book, and others, of course, the book is on Amazon, so you are welcome to take a look at it. Inshallah, I hope it will be beneficial for you. I wrote this book in 2011, and that was immediately after the subprime crisis in the US, which led to we know all whatever happened. I don't have to describe that. And one of the things that has been with me was the way businesses behave. So in that sense, I thought, let me do that. So I researched this book from about roughly around 2007 to about 2010, and the book was first published in 2011. I myself have hands-on experience of working for one of the very big family business groups in India, the Murugappa Group. I worked for them for 10 years, and as part of that work and because of where I was working and so on, I was and continue to be on very good personal terms, friends with the promoter family, with the Murugappas themselves. Mr. M.M. Arunachalam was in a way my mentor, and he was the one who was the inspiration for even thinking about family businesses as a whole group and so on. M.M. Venkatachalam, who was my boss, is the one who wrote the foreword for this book. So I have a very hands-on and inside experience of business families, of how they function, how they work. From that time onwards, from say roughly 2010 onwards till the current time for 8-9 years, I have been working with business families in South Africa and Malaysia, here in Sri Lanka, and of course in India. And most of them are South Asian families. Some of them are Muslim. A number of them, actually probably more, are non-Muslim. But all South Asian families. And one of my learnings is that a lot of the culture is very similar. Even though the others are Hindus and two of them are Christian and the rest of them are Muslim. But the South Asian culture itself, the values and so on, so very, very similar. I was invited also to speak at the National University of Singapore to present a paper on family businesses in South Asia. So that's something I was invited to do, and I went and did that. This is a list of what? Yeah, there it is. Okay. That's a list of my clients in the family business clients. This doesn't include the large corporates which I work with, but this is the family business list, and it's by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's there. Now, I want to begin with a quote from one of my favorite people whose quotes I like very much, which is Vince Lombardi, Chicago Bay Packers baseball coach, very famous coach, and some of his quotes are phenomenal. I mean, just go and look up on Google Vince Lombardi and you will find wonderful things. And one of his quotes is this, which is, the dictionary is the only place where success comes before work. And in my experience of family business consulting, I think this is a very good quote for the second generation and third generation, because since they are born in a Mercedes-Benz, most of them, they think that it happens automatically, that it's something which is default. Which it isn't. The first generation will always agree with me. The second and third generation, sometimes they will agree, sometimes they don't. But the reality is that is a fact. That work has to come before success. Success doesn't come before work. Even if you are born, with the entire silver cutlery in your mouth, not just the spoon. Now, therefore, what's the challenge? And that challenge is the title of my presentation today, which is to make this critical change, and this is a term that I coined, from being person-led to being process-driven. Now you might say, well, why is this important at all? Why must you be moved from person-led to profit to process-driven? The answer is very simple. The answer is that every single business, I can probably say this without any exaggeration, every single business starts as a, within quotes, family business. The people who start the business may not necessarily be one family as in being biologically related, but it's either a family which is biologically related, or it is maybe two friends or something like this who are very close. That is how every business starts. That's how GE started, that's how Microsoft started, that's how IBM started, that's how everything starts. Therefore, the very fact that that business grows is testimony to the fact that this person or this very small group of people, it's never more than 2 or 3, were people with vision, with a lot of energy, with a lot of courage, with a lot of willingness to work very hard. They took the right decisions. Sometimes, not sometimes, almost always, they would probably never have documented that. You know, why did you actually take that decision is never documented, because usually the answer that's given to me when I say, why have you not written it down, they say, no, we have no time. We have no time, and you feel nice about that. You know, I have no time. I'm too busy making money. I'm too busy running the business. So you feel very good about the fact that you have no time. But believe me, that thing comes back to bite you very hard. And the reason that happens is because the very qualities that enabled you to start and to succeed are by nature, unless you do something about it, they are non-transferable. They stay with the individual. Just because you have a son and he has the same genes, he will not have your courage, he will not have your vision, he will not have your understanding, he will not have your political skills, he will not have your behavioral skills. This has to be learnt. This does not come automatically. Now many people forget that. And to make matters worse, many business first generation people, and I'm sure you have this experience, I've heard this again and again. The first generation telling me with great emotion, sometimes with tears in their eyes, when I love listening to entrepreneurial stories. I just tell them, tell me, how did it start? This is how I learned from A.M. Arunachalam. I used to sit with him and I used to ask him, tell me, how did all this start? Now A.M. was fluent in English, but being a Tamilian Chettiar, he loved to speak in his own language, which is Tamil, and I speak Tamil fluently. So it was a great equation with him and me. And he used to tell me the whole story of how the Murugappa group started from literally nothing. They came from Burma to India as refugees. One of the brothers was killed. And they started with practically nothing, and they built it to what it is today, which is around $4 or $5 billion corporation with about 25 companies. So, and now it's the 6th generation in the seat. So I asked him, I said, this is obviously a great success story. How did you do that? And he would tell me. Now, when I listen to these stories, and the Murugappa group is not one of them, and that's the reason why they have succeeded. Most entrepreneurs, when you ask them this question, they say to me, I started this very hard, I did this, I used to walk, I was on a bicycle and so on and so on. But he said, I want to make sure that my children never have to face that hardship. Have you heard this? Have you heard this statement? I want to make sure that my children never face this hardship. You know what I say to them? I say to them, please change the words. Repeat after me. Change the words. I want my children never to have initiative. I want my children never to have courage. I want my children never to become tough. I want my children to be soft soaps which anyone can hijack. He said, no, what are you saying? I'm not saying that. I say, you are saying that. That is exactly what you are saying. Because the very things which made you what you are, you want to deprive your children of that, because today you have the money as a cushion around you. So my children will never sit in a bus, in a public transport. My children will drive, and they will be driven to the school, and they will not be driven in even a Toyota. They will not be driven in an Indica. They will be driven in a Mercedes. By all means do that, no problem. That Mercedes belongs to you. The children are also yours. But you make a choice. And the choice they make is, again, most of the time it's obviously unconscious, or rather all the time. The choice they make is that they spend their entire life, and they put their entire life and energy and dreams into building something, And at the tail end of their life, when they should really see that thing growing and prospering, they see that thing being destroyed before their eyes at the tail end of their lives. And that is very, very sad. And that is even more sad because it is entirely avoidable. Totally. It's not inevitable, it's completely avoidable. And the only reason it happens is because up to that time, no effort is made to say, how will this business go forward to the next generation? Believe me, succession planning is not something that you do after your Salatul Janazah. You have to do it a little bit before that. Otherwise, it won't happen. As I told you, it's not automatic. It can be done perfectly well, but it's not automatic. So that's why I wrote the book. Now, why is this change difficult? The book cover, if you noticed, has a caterpillar on the bottom and it has a butterfly on top. I put that there because that is what the change is. From a family-owned, family-run, meaning person-led business to becoming a process-driven business is a transformation which is as intrinsic, as fundamental, as painful as the transition from a caterpillar to the butterfly. The entire nature of the thing has to change. And what's the benefit? The benefit is that you move from crawling around eating leaves to flying at will, eating nectar. That's the plus point. The bottom line, why does it not happen? Because you know and I know that the vast majority of family businesses don't last over 3 generations. Why? Because the caterpillar does not see a butterfly when it looks in the mirror. That is the leap of faith, where you should be able to see what is the benefit of what I am doing. Why must I change? Because that is the potential. In that change, which you cannot see, but which you need to be able to visualize, are the seeds for greatness. Now, as part of the research of my book, I said, okay, let me see, since I have this theory to say that all of this is transferable, all of this is doable and so on, I need to be able to prove this theory, because the first thing that somebody is going to ask me is, tell me where it happens. Natural question, right? You say, if I am telling you that transitions can be done successfully, first question you will ask me is, okay, show me where it happens. You know what I found? I found a business called Congo Gumi Construction. Congo Gumi Construction in Japan, which is alive and well today, 1400 years old. Which means, for the Muslims in this lecture who know something about the history of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Congo Gumi was a running business when Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was in Mecca. 1400 years going strong, same family. So it can be done. I said, okay, maybe one exception. It's not an exception. Other businesses are not 1400 years old, but I found businesses which are 1000 years old, which are 700 years old, 800 years old, 300-400 years old, many businesses. A lot of them, interestingly and funnily, are wine making businesses in Europe. I don't think there is a connection that you need to be growing wine to maybe they get nice and drunk so they don't fight. I don't know what the issue is. And the other side of the story is first generation, second generation collapses, otherwise first generation starts the business, second generation maintains it, third generation destroys it, fourth generation goes to the drawing board all over again. Including, and I want to emphasize this point, usually when the business breaks up, the family also breaks up. Brothers don't talk to brothers, there is enmity in the family. But even let's take the best case scenario, which one or couple of them are there. And that best case scenario is that the business, there are three brothers, the business is divided up among the three. Relationships are not broken, they are still friends with each other, they still go to each other's houses and so on and so forth. Is that good or bad? According to me, it is very bad. And the reason it's very bad is because you brought the business back to the first generation. Here was a business which was 300 million, you brought it back to 100 million. How is that good? What was the alternative? The alternative was to keep it 300 million and to grow it from there. Each generation builds on the gains of the next generation. Instead of that, even if you divide up and even if you do that very amicably, still it is a loss because you are bringing it back to the first generation. That does not make any sense whatsoever. And as I told you, all of this is avoidable. It is not inevitable at all. But if you want to avoid it, we have to work. We have to take some painful decisions. And if you do that, the other side is equally inevitable, which is that you will succeed. There is no doubt in my mind about that. I have enough case studies of that among my clients as well as others. Now let's look at why all of this is important, because if you look at, do a quick environmental scan of the world, see what the effects of globalization are. I have been involved with GE's globalization program from 1995 onwards. Incidentally, I am going to give you all of these slides. You will get a link with the entire lot of slides. So, for those of you who are taking photographs, you don't need to bother. You will get all the slides. Now, thanks to globalization, this is what we have. I was invited to do the keynote address for a venture capital fund which was being launched in Bangalore, and so I said to them, I said in 2017, looking at various reports, Fortune 500, Fortune magazine, World Bank and so on, one of the things that was reported was that in 2017, this was a report from The Guardian, and you will get the link with that. In 2016 and 2017, 62 people, 62 individuals owned more resources, more wealth than 50% of the rest of the world. Take the world population at roughly 7 billion. We are saying here that 62 people, and just to give you a mental picture of that, a full bus is 65 people. So 62 people means there are three seats vacant, right? So 62 people in 2016, 2017, 62 people owned more wealth, not equal, more wealth than 50% of the rest of the world. They own more wealth than 3.5 billion people put together. In 2017-18, that number dropped from 62 to 8. 8 people. 8 people you can put them into a traveler, into a van, right? 8 people own more wealth than 50% of the world. Now let me ask you a very simple question. If you are one of those 8, do you think that's good news or bad news? Seriously, ask yourself this. I'm not talking about going to heaven, I'm not talking about good deeds, I'm not talking about charity. I'm asking you a business question. Is disparity of income a good thing or a bad thing? Again, leave the morals out of it. I'm asking you a straightforward, hardcore business question because I'm a businessman in disguise. So, I've been an entrepreneur from 1985 onwards. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? Bad? Yeah, that's the expected answer. Why? That's because you are smart. You're saying bad because you know I will challenge that. Yeah? Of course you know how much you have. If you don't know how much you have, how do you know how much you have? Of course you know how much you have. You know why it's bad? Think about this. If I am in the business of manufacturing these phones, right? And I am one of those 8. What do I need if I want to become more wealthy? Consumers. I need people to buy these phones, yes or no? Yes. Now when I have disparity of income, When I have the vast majority of the country too poor because they don't have food to eat, who will buy these phones? How do I get wealthy? Disparity of income is the worst bad news in the world for business people. If you have disparity of income in society, you will only get poorer, you can't get wealthier. Supposing I'm a billionaire and my business is building golf courses. So I build these absolutely phenomenal, beautiful golf courses. What do I need to make money out of those golf courses? If I don't just want the golf course to walk on it and nice view, sorry, that's not the reason why you build a golf course, right? So if I want those golf courses to earn me good money, what do I need? Golfers. Who is a golfer? Somebody who is scrounging around for his bread? Disparity of income is the worst bad news in the world. And this is what business people need to understand. That's why I tell people, forget about charity. I'm not talking about Jannah. Allah will give you Jannah anyway, forget that. I am talking about dollars and cents. It is bad for business. It is bad for economies. Also, when you have disparity of income, you've got a lot of poor people. There are security problems, there are law and order problems, there is terrorism, there is all kinds of things because people have nothing to lose. You know the best cure for terrorism? Give them something to lose. Everybody becomes a law-abiding citizen if he's got something to lose. When people have nothing to lose, then they do all kinds of stuff. So think about that. And that does not come from handouts. That's why I'm willing to tell you openly, I'm against charity. Yeah, don't take that literally, by all means give charity, but I'm against charity as handouts. I'm for charity as creating entrepreneurs, empowering society. Don't just give handouts. You give a handout, the guy eats it, finishes it, come back again. Set him up. Let him produce. And I'll tell you in a few minutes how that is very easy to do. It's not difficult at all. So this is the whole issue of the situation. Therefore, in that speech of mine to the venture capital fund, I said today we are not living in a world which has a deficit of wealth. We are living in a world which has deficit of values, deficit of compassion, deficit of understanding. And that's what we need to change. So let me ask you this question. You're all business people here. Do you know what can kill your business in the next 3 years? Do you know what can kill your business in the next 3 years? And if you don't know, then I think you should start thinking. I don't think you should sleep tonight. Seriously. 3 years it will go like that. And if you do know, then the question is, therefore, do you have a strategy to deal with that? And if you are among those who thinks that nothing will kill your business, go talk to Kodak. Wildlife photography is a hobby of mine, and I remember very clearly the days when you had to buy the Kodak film, 24 exposures or 36 exposures, and the whole rigmarole of, today I have a digital camera. On an average trip, I'm going to Yala at the end of this whole week, on an average trip, in a day, I will take maybe 2,000 photographs. Cost me nothing, zero. You know who invented digital photography? Kodak. There was a guy in Kodak who invented digital photography. He took it to the company said, bad idea, forget it. B&B. Do you think Hilton Hotel saw Oyo or B&B coming, bread and breakfast? I can give you any number. Do you think taxi companies saw Uber coming? Change creeps up on you. What we call the boiled frog syndrome. Have you heard about this? Have you heard this term, boiled frog? You know what's a boiled frog? Take a frog, nice healthy frog, put it into a pot of water, a pot of hot water, it will leap out. The moment you put it inside, jump out. But take the same frog, put it in a pot of normal water at room temperature, let it get settled down in the water, then light a small fire under it, let the water heat. Gradually, the water will get hotter and hotter and hotter. The frog gets used to this temperature, which is hotter and hotter, until it reaches a point where the frog realizes that this is now getting lethal, this is getting dangerous, but by then it's a cold-blooded animal, its faculties don't work anymore. The muscles are now incapable of responding. So the frog knows it is dying, but it can't do anything about it, it dies. And then what do? You take it out, you put some salt and pepper, you twist of lime and you. And that's why I say this. If you don't know what will kill your business in the next 3 years, I'm asking you a direct, straight question. Do you know or you do not know? If you don't know that, if you know and you do not have a strategy for that, what does that say about your culture as an organization? How many people in this room in the last 3 months bought and read a book that relates to your business going forward? 1, 2, 3 people. Seriously, time to wake up, right? Time to wake up. You know why I'm saying that? I'm saying that because if you look at the world, this world is run by businessmen. It's not run by politicians. Politicians only think they run the world. They don't run the world. It's not run by the military. It's not. All of these, they serve business people. Practically every good work is funded by business people. And therefore, it is extremely important for business people to create good businesses that sustain across time. And that's the reason I'm saying that. It's very important. It is not okay to start a business and have it collapse because you did not think of some fundamental questions. So ask this question. When you go to work tomorrow, ask this question. How many in this room, when I do my family business workshop, I do a full day workshop on family businesses. One of the questions I ask, and I'm leaking out my question paper right now. One of the questions I ask is, in your business, do you know how much profit you made today? Can somebody answer that question for me? In your business, do you know how much profit you made today? Nobody? One person. What are you saying? What are you saying? If you don't even know how much profit you made today, what kind of business is that? Now you might say, well, you know, I'm pushing it or something. Let me tell you, live examples. Walmart, Sam Walton. Sam Walton had a rule. Sam Walton used to visit Walmarts. Sam Walton actually died in a hospital bed looking at the stock of one of his stores with the man sitting there. He was reading the stock list, and that's when he died. I'm not suggesting to you that that's the way you go. But while you are living, Sam Walton used to visit his stores randomly. He used to fly his own plane, so he would go and land somewhere and he would go to the nearest Walmart. And his way of visiting the store was, he didn't talk to the store manager, he didn't talk to the accountant. He would go and catch hold of the first sales clerk that he saw. So whichever, as he entered the store, first counter, boy or girl, because all young ones, he would catch them and he would say, how much profit did the store make yesterday? 2 questions. How much profit did this store, he's talking about this store. How much profit did the store make yesterday? What is your goal for today? Who is he asking this question to? To a salesperson, sales boy, sales girl. The only allowance that was given was that you could have a slip of paper in your pocket with that number. He didn't expect them to remember the numbers. He's talking to Americans, not Indians or South Asians. Numbers run in our brain. Americans have some trouble with that. So he said, okay, you can have the number written down. So when I'm asking you a question and I'm asking business owners, how much profit did you make yesterday? That's not a wrong question. That's a very valid question. You should know. So as a takeaway from this workshop, please make sure that from tomorrow morning, you do not go to bed unless you know what is your profit for the day. Do a favor to yourself. And in today's world, with our technology, that is so easy, it's not funny. It's very, very, very easy. You have to do nothing. Sam Walton, Walmart, I am talking about the days when they used to actually write down the numbers in ledgers. Now, therefore, a question to ask yourself is, in your organization, is anyone recording what you are learning on a daily basis? Think about this. You have salespeople. Anyone here who doesn't have salespeople? Nobody, right? So your salesman or your saleswoman goes to the market, talks to customers, gets some feedback, they're able to make a sale in a particular case, so they are successful. They go in another place, they can't make the sale, so they are unsuccessful. There is a learning here, there is a learning there. This person is doing that day after day after day after day after day. Who is paying them to do that? You. Because he's doing it on your time, right? He's taking a salary from you. Then he works for you for 1 year, for 5 years, for 10 years, for 40 years, and then he retires or he dies or he resigns and he goes away. He's going away with 40 years of learning of what makes your business successful, and he takes it with him. You have no clue what he learnt. There is no way that anyone else in your organization can benefit from what he learnt. The new salesperson who comes is starting on day one with a blank page. Completely and totally unnecessary. Why does it happen? Because you do not record your learnings. It's like having a bank with a vault wide open. Anyone can walk in, take whatever money he wants and go away. And you as the bank manager, if I ask you, how much money do you have in your bank? And you tell me, we have lots of money. You have lots of money. Is that an acceptable statement? If I ask you in your bank, what's your asset? Oh, we got lots of money. Then how is it an acceptable statement in your business, whatever your business is? Don't feel bad about this, because this is the standard response I get, including from companies which are in the so-called knowledge business, IT companies, ITES companies. They do not store their information, they do not store their knowledge. And the result is, my question is very simple. If you don't know what you know, how can you use it? Incidentally, the way I wrote this book was, I took a sheet of paper, on top I wrote a title, and the title was, What Do I Know About Family Business? And I started writing. When I got to about 300 400 pages, I suddenly realized I know this much about family businesses. Then I put some research and stuff into that, and I tested it out. Then I condensed all of that, edited it, whatnot, and we got the book finally, which is 200 something pages. But how did it start? Because of documentation. I said, what do I know about family business? And I found all this. So my second exercise to you, what's my first exercise to you? What did I tell you to do? What was it? Profit. How much profit did you make today, right? My second exercise to you is, when you go home, sit with a piece of paper or open your computer, open a new page, and write on top, what do I know? That's it. What do I know? And then start writing down everything you know. Whatever it is. How to make a nice omelette, for example. Right? How to make good idlis. I mean, you name it. Whatever you know, just write it down. Randomly just write it down. And when you run out of that, maybe it will take you days, right? Because you really, believe me, we don't know how much we know. We do not know how much we know. So once you write it all down, two things will happen. You'll be very amazed and you'll be very happy about yourself. Say, my God, I know so much. Then you look into that and say, what can I extract from this which is useful for me in my business, which is useful for me in bringing up my children, which is useful for me in my marriage, which is useful for me in my religion, which is useful for me to give back to society, whatever it is. And you will find stuff you did not believe, you could not believe. So please do that. The hard reality is that anticipating change is the first thing to create game changers. You got two kinds of people in the world. You got people who, I'm not talking about losers, I'm talking about winners, but two kinds of winners. You got winners who win the game. So they play the game, they know the rules, and they win the game. But you got others who change the game. If you are winning, even if you are winning, you are still playing by somebody else's rules. But when you become a game changer, you write the rules. Once again, example for you, Test cricket and ODIs. Test cricket is about cricket. ODI is about the television. Anyone who believes that ODI, one-day internationals, 2020s, limited over matches, anyone who believes that this is about cricket, you haven't understood the game. That's about making money. That's about television. So you took a game which took 5 days of Test cricket. I mean, I'm in Sri Lanka, so we know all about cricket, right? And I'm from India, so we're supposed to know all about cricket. I'm the only Indian who knows nothing about cricket, except from the business angle. You took a game which was about playing and you converted it into a spectator sport, global spectator sport, which made you money like you didn't believe existed. That's the meaning of game changing. So also football, now everybody fell in line. The only game which didn't fall in line is hockey, which is a fantastically skillful game, but for some reason hockey got left out behind. So who knows anything about hockey? And that's the reason I'm saying, think about that. The only thing permanent in the world is change. Because permanence is not natural. Nothing is permanent, everything changes. The good changes, the bad changes. And therefore, unless you get into a position of driving change, you will get changed by someone else. I'll give you 2 examples. The travel business, travel agencies. I worked for one for 2 years, and the first thing I did, I was recruited as the head of the agency, in charge of inland tours in Delhi. After I finished my 10 years in tea, I was a tea planter for 10 years, then I went into travel, and before that I was a miner for 5 years in South America. So anyway, I got into this trade. The first thing I did was I went to learn how to write a ticket, and they used to have these books called ABC books. Each book was about this fat. So if you came to me and said that I want a ticket and I'm going from Colombo to Singapore, and from Singapore I want to go to Tokyo, from Tokyo I want to go to Australia, to Sydney, and from Sydney I want to go to Buenos Aires, and from Buenos Aires I want to go to Florida, from Florida I want to go to London. So you got these multiple destination itineraries. I would note it all down. Then I would sit with this book and I would go through this book, and maybe in about 3 days from today I would give you one itinerary to do all this, and I would say this is what it will cost, and you will say, fantastic, what a phenomenal travel advisor you are, in 3 days you gave me this answer. Then came Galileo. And Galileo, somebody wet behind the ears, they don't know the first thing about travel, they probably never sat in a plane in their lives. On Galileo, the same itinerary, that person will give you the answer not in 3 hours, in 3 minutes. And they will not give you one itinerary, they will give you multiple itineraries. And they will tell you, do you really need to go from Singapore to Japan, or is it okay if I take you via Hong Kong? You say, why? Because if I take you via Hong Kong, I can get you a 20% decrease in your fare. Or I can get you upgraded to first class instead of economy. Now, do you like that? Singapore Airlines first class, the only thing better than that is Jannah. And you have to die to get there. This is life while you are alive, right? So what happened to the travel consultants? I ran a travel agency. A travel consultant was somebody you handled like this, because that one was the person which was getting you your revenue. Many of them were prima donnas, many of them had demands like you won't believe, but you said, whatever they said, you said yes. Overnight, the only use of those fat books was if you were vertically challenged, then you put the fat book under your sit upon and you sat upon it. That's it. Did we see that change coming? Same thing happened to the leather industry. Same thing happened to the travel industry in terms of EU rules which were created and which were enforced on everybody in the world. Now, I don't want to go into details. I have case studies for all of this, but I don't want to take too much of your time. But I'm just saying that hard reality is that unless you anticipate change, that's why right in the beginning I asked you, in the next 3 years, what will destroy your business? What has the potential to kill your business in the next 3 years? That question must be clear in your mind. You must live with it. You must have the answer to that. You must be investing in a strategy to counter that. And that is only the first stage. The second stage is you must think about game changers. Get beyond that. Because what I'm talking about is reaction. You need to be able to do something which actually creates not a reaction, but which creates a transformation in the business environment. What is that thing? And that's why I say that the single biggest and most critical requirement of success is this passion to be the best. Absolute commitment to quality. That's why I'm saying quality is not an option. It's like saying breathing is an option. Is breathing an option? The alternative is death. Quality is not an option. Quality is a given. And unless you have that passion to say that whatever I do, I am going to do it better than anyone else can do in the world. If you are a teacher, before you walk into the class, stand there for a second and say, today I am going to teach like I never taught before. I am going to leave an impression on these children that they will not forget for the rest of their lives. This morning I did a lecture for teachers, and I told them stories of my school days, which was in the 1960s, from 62 to 72. And I told them about my teachers. And as I was speaking those stories, and this happens to me every single time, I can see that teacher live in front of my face. They're dead and gone a long time. But 50 plus years later, I as a student am sitting in a different country talking about and honoring that teacher. Now, what kind of teacher that must have been? Think about that. Now, that is an option that every single one of us has in every single profession that we have. It's not only for teachers. Whatever your profession, whatever your business, that passion to be absolutely the best. And that's why I say compromise is cancer. And unlike cancer, compromise is transmittable. Cancer will only kill that person. Compromise will kill the whole organization. And many, many times, we compromise, especially with families, especially with our children. So what must you do? Go from person-led to process-driven. There are three critical stakeholders in any business: the shareholder manager, and the manager. And of these, the shareholder manager, which is the family individual, is the most critical. Not because he is necessarily the most productive, but because he always has the maximum potential to do damage. And the reason why families fall into this trap is because they don't understand one very simple thing, which is that to support a family member, you don't necessarily have to employ them in your business. It's almost a default setting. In most South Asian businesses, Muslim and otherwise, the women do not enter the business. Unwritten rule. Right? There is gross discrimination. They have the money, so they educate the daughters. Many, if not all, the daughters go to the best schools, best colleges. They go abroad, they study. They have, highly educated, and then they come back, and they are not allowed into the business because that's the unwritten rule in the family that women will not enter the business. And for the men, the other rule, which is, if he is born, he will work here. That's the rule. As long as he is alive, as long as he is breathing, nothing else is required. As long as he is breathing, he can be brain dead, no problem, but he will be here in this business. Both are extremely short-sighted, extremely bad policies. You know who should run a business? Tell me. Who should run a business? Son, daughter, who should run a business? Who said that? That's called a virtual handshake. Somebody who knows how to run the business. The simplest way to understand that, if I tell you that, okay, my father bought this plane, that I've got this beautiful Learjet. Who should fly the plane? Somebody who knows how to fly the plane. Now I go there and I say to the pilot, go sit in the back. I am flying this plane. So the pilot says, I know you. You don't have a pilot's license, right? You never flew a plane in your life. Don't do this to yourself. I'm not sitting in the back anyway if you are flying the plane. So what do I say to the pilot? I said, no, excuse me. You shut up. You are my father's employee. I am my father's son. This plane belongs to my father. My father owns the plane, so I own the plane. Here is the document to show that I own the plane. I will fly this plane. You know what the pilot will say? No problem, fly the plane. I am going to go and make arrangements for your funeral because that is what will have to be done. It's very strange. It's very strange that business families, they won't even think twice about this question of, will I allow my son to fly a plane that I own? What do planes cost? In some cases less than a car. There are many cars which cost more than $1 million. There are many planes which cost less than $1 million. But the same son, you will hand over a business of 1 billion. You will hand over a business of 500 million. You will hand over a business of 25 billion. Just like that. You will not give him a plane to fly which costs 1 million, but you will give him a business worth 100 million. Does it make sense? I've got nothing against sons, believe me. I think it's a very good thing for a family business to be run by the family. It's a very good thing. Should happen. Why not? Who has more right? Who's more justified? Who has more right to run a business than your own children? Nobody. But train them. Prepare them. Because if you don't prepare them, the same thing will happen as in a plane. There are 3 critical elements and there are 3 critical needs. The 3 critical elements that need to be changed from person-led to process-driven is entrepreneurial spirit. This is what started your business. This is what keeps it going. That is the spirit, that is the life in the business. The entrepreneurial spirit, which is inspiration, which is risk-taking and so on. The second one is succession. Where are the power centers? You know why it's a very bad idea to put incompetent family people in the business? Is because of the potential to do damage. Now you might say, why is an incompetent employee, who is more harmful, an incompetent employee or an incompetent family member? Why? Because of the association with the family. He becomes the power center. The incompetent employee never becomes the power center. He is incompetent by himself. You can kick him out any minute, no problem. But with the family member, People think they are stuck. You are not stuck. You just choose to be stuck. And in our families, meaning South Asian families, the definition of family itself is different. Because in a Western family, and this is one of the reasons why the Western model of family business has not taken off in South Asia, and my contention is it will never take off in South Asia because it is culturally doesn't suit. In the West, a family is at best husband, wife, children, period. And I am saying at best because even that may not be there. In our families, irrespective of religion, Gujarati families, Memon families, Marwadi families, you name it. It is son, it is father, mother, son, mother-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, grandmother, grandfather, everybody. Everyone has something to say, whether they are formal shareholders or not, they are influencers. Some influence in the boardroom, some influence in the bedroom, but the influence comes. And that's what I tell these people, the family business men who say, I will not allow women to come into the business. I said to them, you have only two choices, right? Not allowing women is not a choice. You've got two choices. You can have informed women who understand business, or you can have uninformed women who do not understand business. That's it, period. They are both involved. They are both involved. They will both influence. Your choices. Do you want influence from a woman who does not understand the business? Or do you want influence from a woman who understands the business? That is your choice. Your choice is not saying, I will not allow women into the business, because if that woman is alive and she's in your house, she's in the business. As simple as that. Right? Third one, conflict resolution. I have done arbitration for a couple of people, couple of companies, couple of clients of mine. One was successful, another one was not successful. And it is, the successful ones of course are nice, but the ones which are not successful is tragic. It's tragic. It is very, very sad to see blood relatives, and we are talking about brothers and sisters, blood relatives, fighting each other like enemies. Children of one brother disrespecting the other brother. He will not say salam to his uncle. Can you believe that? I mean, the poison goes down into the family generation after generation. Very sad. You know why it happens? Because there is no process for conflict resolution. That's why I say the time to create processes for conflict resolution is when there is no conflict, not when the conflict happens. It's like saying you should go to the gym for your heart health, right? And the day you think of going to the gym is when you are having a heart attack. What will happen if you go to the gym when you are having a heart attack? You will die faster. The time to go to the gym is when you are not having a heart attack. Then you will probably not have a heart attack because you are going to the gym. The time to create conflict resolution structures and processes is when there is no conflict. When there is love and affection, when there is, trust. By definition, when there is a conflict, the first thing that collapses is trust. You start suspecting, no, I can't, my brother is going to take me for a ride. At that time you come in and you say, resolve the conflict. No, it doesn't happen. Will not happen. And that's why I said, if you want your business to outlast you, you have to do something about that starting today. If you don't do that, then the other side is inevitable. Both are inevitable. It is inevitable that your business will be successful. You will be able to successfully hand it over from generation to generation. It's also inevitable that your business will fail and your family will break up. Both are equally inevitable. You are the decision maker. You can make it happen or you can make it go fat. Entirely up to you. And for that you need three critical needs. One is the speed of reaction. Let me ask you something, and I am asking now the business owners. When was the last time you went in the market and sat with a customer in his shop or in his house and talked about your product? How many of you did that in the last 1 year? One person. If I am talking to first generation people, what do you think they will say? I did it just now before I came to this place. Yes or no? So what happens? This is what happens. When it is not converted into a process, this is what happens. Your customers are your lifeblood. You lose touch with them, you are already dead. You just don't know it. But this happens practically in every business unless you create processes. Talk to customers face to face, which means that you have to hit the road, you have to walk the street. If you are in the business of tea, marketing and selling, and I know that some of people I recognize here who are in tea, it means going and sitting in that chakada, no air conditioning, no nothing. Sit and buy a cup of tea and sit with that fellow and talk to him. I am not even talking about going to the auctions. Go into that shop where he is selling. I don't want to take your time by going business after business, but it means for everything. J.W. Marriott, the great hotelier, somebody said to him, and I have stayed in Marriott hotels, America and here and so on. One of the finest hotel chains that I have ever stayed in. So somebody went to J.W. Marriott and told him, you have a fantastic business, you got beautiful hotels, you got wonderful customer service and so on and so on. He said, excuse me, thank you very much, but let me go, I have to see to my business. He's not being rude. He understands his business. And what did he used to do? He used to go and see in the room, is the room clean? Who is doing that? The big boss man. Is he doing that because that hotel did not have a housekeeping manager? No. He is doing it because that is how the hotel business succeeds. That is how every single business succeeds. Because you take a personal interest in the front line. You talk to the customer, you talk to your first line person. And that will happen only if you make the business process driven. Now, 6 process structures, and if you read my book, I have explained some of these, not some of these, I have explained all of these, but obviously it's in the book, so you have to read it. And for our clients, we help them actually create that. Number 1 is what we call the Entrepreneur's Lab. Now, why is the Entrepreneur's Lab important? Because when new blood comes into the business, usually they want a piece of the business. I remember talking to third generation guy who was having a fight with his father. So he said, please, I just want to get out from the business. I said, go. He said, no, I want my share of the business. And daddy is not agreeing. So I said, no problem. I will talk to your father and I think I can influence him. I will tell your father to give you your share. He was very happy. He said, oh, Uncle Yawar, you will do that? I said, sure, I'll do that. He said, please do it. I said, tell me, what is your share? Right? Because I am supposed to tell your father to give you your share. So I must tell him, what is that share? How much? He said, 50%. I said, on what basis? There has to be some logic, no? So you are saying 50% of the business, on what basis? So he got the message, he kept quiet. Why does that happen? Because he has no other way. There is no other way for him to express himself, for him to do something. That's why the Entrepreneur's Lab. Number 2 is Young Leaders Council. How do you teach somebody to swim? By swimming. How do you teach someone to ride a bicycle? By riding a bicycle. Do you know anyone who learns to ride a bicycle by going to a 3-hour lecture on riding bicycles? Or who watches a YouTube video on riding bicycles? No. You have to get onto the bike, you have to fall down, whatever, and you learn to ride a bicycle. Business is exactly that way. How do you learn to run a business? By running a business. There is no other way. He doesn't have to run your business, he has to run some business, he has to have some business, he must know to buy, he must know to sell, he must know to budget, he must understand, otherwise he will never learn. And that is what the Young Leaders Council does, which is it brings in all this new knowledge and the energy into a constructive place where they take decisions on how to run businesses. It doesn't spoil your business in the process. Number 3, new venture incubator. Why do you need that? Because many times the younger generation, and I'm not only talking about your children, I'm talking about the second generation, meaning even your employees and so on and so forth. They have very good sound business ideas for new businesses, but they don't have capital. So what happens now? He doesn't have capital, he is working for you, he will go to somebody who will lend him the money and he will start a business and he's gone from you. Makes far more sense, because you are sitting on money, makes far more sense for you to fund that and to keep that in your family, let your business grow. Now for that, it's very important, new venture incubator, it is very important to treat that like the way a banker will treat somebody who comes for a loan. Very hard-nosed, ask for a business plan, shoot it full of holes, make it a holy business plan, let him go and plug up all the holes, come back again. Don't just make it easy money. Don't just say, no, because you're my son, I'm giving you. No son and business. I mean, you are coming here as a potential investor. I'm a venture capitalist. I'm going to treat this as a venture capital proposal. And if it flies, then no problem. I want 40%, I want 30% of the equity in this business. So I will help you and I will fund you and you run with it, and when you grow, I grow with you. Again, this will happen if you create that process in the business. Otherwise, many times one of the biggest problems in most family businesses is the loose way of treating money. How many of you have family businesses where if you want some money, you just go and take it? I won't ask you to raise your hands, because I know there are lots of them like this, right? You have your family business, if you need money, you just take it. Maybe you write a voucher, sometimes they don't even write a voucher, they just take the money. And the justification is, oh, it's my business. You know, if it is your business, that is even more reason not to do that. There must be a proper system of approval before you take out $5 from that business. Nobody says don't take it, it's your money. But there has to be a system, there must be a system. Otherwise, you will go down many times. At the end of the day, it is your capital, it is your cash flow, and suddenly you decide, I'm going to build a house. So I want 5 million, you take out 5 million. What happens to your cash flow? But that's what happens when we don't have those systems. Then the arbitration council, which is a conflict resolution process. To create an arbitration council for the time when you will need somebody to resolve conflicts. Mentoring network. I'm talking about succession planning, right? How do you create successes? They don't happen overnight. It takes time, it takes effort, and that will not happen unless you create a mentoring network which grows that person. Finally, especially from a South Asian context, council of elders, because many times we have no retirement dates. You know, our business leaders do not come with expiry dates. Their expiry date is the day they actually expire, and that's not a good thing at all, because that means that everyone else's promotion is also blocked, because you are sitting there and you are. That's why I sometimes tell first generation fathers, I tell them, you know what, your son is making lot of dua for you, and the father says, oh, I'm so happy. No, I said, no, you want to know what dua is making? He's saying, oh Ya Allah, give my father Jannah today, please. You don't want that dua. He's praying tahajjud every day. So you are very happy. My son is praying tahajjud. You know what? He's making dua there. Ya Allah, give my father Jannah now, right now. Like, you know, Salatul Fajr, let him go. Don't do that to yourself. At the same time, the elders in the business, the elders in the family, they come with a lot of wisdom. They come with they are the purveyors of family history. You need that. You can't throw it into the garbage. It's a terrible loss if you let that go away. What must you do? Give them a place, a legitimate place. And that is the Council of Elders. Go to them for advice. Keep them out of the day-to-day running of the business, but keep them there for the advice they can give. Go listen to them. Values, culture, morals, their business stories, highly inspirational. How did this business start? What did you do? What was the first thing you did? What was in your heart? What was the fear? How did you overcome that? All of this we need. Keep it in a place where it's accessible, but don't let them into the day-to-day running of the business. And this is not something you can do. This is what they have to do for themselves. And that's what I mean by all these structures of moving from being person-led to being process-driven. And for that we do what is called a family constitution. So we write this constitution document, which is a collaborative work by the family themselves, where they set rules for themselves which they will follow throughout their life. Now, what are the process challenges? One is to create a passionate team which feels that the business is their own. And my judgment or my assessment of a good team is, what does it do in failures? Success, everyone is happy, but in hard times, how does the team function through difficulties? Second one is, this will happen with robust recruitment techniques, merit-based progress, and rewarding of results, which means that you do not punish a genuine risk which goes bad. You do not treat a mistake and a crime equally. Right? I've written a book on recruitment as well, on how to recruit. I've written a book on entrepreneurship, of starting a business, going forward, and so on. So all of those are there on Amazon. And that's why I use this term supportive competition. That sounds like a oxymoron. How will you support and compete at the same time? But that's what good family business is about. It's competition, but it's not destructive competition. It's supportive competition. So you are competing, but you are helping each other to succeed, whereby everybody succeeds. And why is all this important? As I said, as a social scientist, I say this, that the success of the world is in creating entrepreneurs. Not humongous companies which are only focused on shareholder value, but actual businesses which live in the land, which live in communities, which grow communities with them, which take communities with them. This is what we need. Stakeholders who do everything. Now, succession planning, therefore, is the most critical requirement for a business to succeed. And as I said, everyone pays lip service to this idea. I have not yet met any person who said that succession planning is not important. But you know and I know that the vast majority of family businesses have zero succession planning. It happens by default. So let me ask you this question. I want you to name one person, and there are several or many CEOs who are sitting here. There are several first generation, second generation business owners who are sitting here. May Allah give you a long and healthy life, but supposing you drop dead tomorrow morning, who will take over? Do you have a name? And if you have a name, how valid is that name? I've been working with GE from 1994 onwards as a consultant, and one of the great GE processes is called the GE airplane interview. Now what they do is, for the successor of the CEO of General Electric, there is a global talent search which sometimes takes something like maybe 10 years or 12 years. And they narrow it down. They would start off maybe by having about 300,000 people, 3 lakh people globally, and they narrow it down to 3 people, 3 individuals. So who are these 3 people? These 3 people are the 3 top, absolute number 1 best people in GE, right? Then what happens is, the incumbent CEO, the chairman of General Electric, takes each one of them individually up in the corporate plane. They go through this whole process. I mean, you might say, well, why must you go up in the plane? Why can't you have the same interview sitting down? But they do that. They get very passionate about this. So they take this person up in the plane, and when they are at cruising altitude, there is only one question which is asked, and that question is, if this plane crashes and both of us die, who in your opinion is ready to take over as chairman of General Electric? Right? So now the person names somebody. So say, supposing I am going up, the chairman, the current chairman is there, I am one of the 3 people selected to take over from this chairman, and I am asked this question, if this plane crashes and both of us die, who is ready to take over General Electric? And I say Riaz Sanghani. It's very good. Now what happens? Plane lands. GE Corporate Audit does a complete detailed study of Riaz Sanghani. And what is the study? Is Riaz, as on this date, ready to take over GE as the chairman? And say at the end of that, the result is that Riaz is a brilliant guy, he is a fantastic manager, he's got great potential, but he's not yet ready to take over as chairman as on today. He needs maybe another couple of years of exposure here and there. Right? So we are not saying Riaz is a bad guy, no, he is a good guy, he is capable, yes, he can be chairman, but not right today. You know what happens? Guess what happens? Who gets fired? Riaz or me? Me. I get fired. I don't get bypassed for succession. I get dismissed. Who are you dismissing? You are dismissing one of 3 top people in your organization. You spend God knows how much money selecting me, training me, whatnot, and you are firing me like a shot because I named a person who is still a great and good person, but is not yet ready just now. Now you might argue and say, what is this, mad nonsense? I mean, why must Riaz be ready right now? So what if Riaz is ready 2 years later? I am not dying, he is not dying. This is all a make-believe drama in any case. No. You know why they do that? Because you, me in this case, were not focused on succession planning. You did not develop your subordinates. This, believe me, is such a culture in GE, it's unbelievable. Everyone, half his brain is thinking, who is my successor, who is my successor. People go out of their way to mentor people, to train people, because they know their life depends on it. So if I ask you this question now and say, all of you CEOs who are sitting here, if I tell you this, that if you do not have a name to take over from you as chairman of your company tomorrow morning, verified and audited by an independent external auditor. It's not a question of saying, I so and so because I love him. No, your love and so on doesn't count. Is he capable? If you don't have a name, are you ready to write your resignation letter now? Sorry to be rude, but that is the reality. It just means you are a lousy head of your organization. You are a lousy chairman. So change. Change. As I told you, don't go to sleep tonight until you identify a person, and that person you then have to spend time and energy and money behind that person to make sure that that person is capable of taking over from you. And that's not one person. If that person is taking over from you, then you need someone to take over from them, and so down the line. You are talking about a systematic process of succession planning and people development. And that's why I say there has to be a mindset change from consumption to contribution. Sadly speaking, many family businesses, people are focused on what can I get out of the business, not on saying what can I contribute to the business. But the reality is that if you think what can I get out of the business is the same pie, you're going to just take pieces out of the same pie. Whereas if you say what can I contribute to the business, the pie grows. So your same 10% share is worth 100 million today, it will become worth 100 billion if you are contributing to the business. It's the same 10% share. It hasn't, the percentage has not increased, but the absolute value has increased. So important therefore to do in that is to define boundaries. Entry criteria, career progress criteria, succession criteria, and exit criteria and implement that ruthlessly without exception. Out of this, in most family businesses, none of these exist as clear-cut criteria to be applied to family members. I am talking about the shareholder owner. Entry criteria, as I told you, if it's a boy, if he is born, he will enter. That's it. Usually. Number two, career progress criteria depends on how he can suck up to the father. I'm sorry to be rude, but I think I know I'm being extremist in this, but I've seen this so many times. It's not funny. If it's not happening in your business, then believe me, all power to you. Fantastic. Number three, succession criteria, same problems, which end up in the business breaking up. Exit criteria, who is she? No exit criteria. Death. Malakul maut. Once you are in the business, you are in the business. All four are very bad situations. Now, what must you do for each of these? We don't have time now, but this is what I teach in my book. It is all there, so do take a look at it. And therefore, there has to be a change in the focus from being self-centered to being concerned. And when that happens, businesses grow. That happens, you have satisfied employees, you've got a satisfied marketplace, you've got satisfied customers, all kinds of good things happen. And that's why I say, and this is the last of my slides, being wealthy is to have more options, not to have more possessions. That's the meaning of wealth. Wealth must give you freedom. For most people, wealth locks you in. If your wealth is locking you in, then you are not wealthy. You are a poor guy because you got no options. Thank you very much. It's wonderful being here with you. That's my contact, my email and my website and so on. وصلى الله على نبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والحمد لله رب العالمين.